Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Didye Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhagavati Naishiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satsvarup Das Goswami, Volume 3, only he could lead them, San Francisco, India, 1967. Chapter 24th, New Jagannath Puri. So Prabhupada had gone for this kirtan in the park with all the hippies dancing, chanting, and Prabhupada first time used that clay mridanga. So let's see what further goes on. The dancing was free, form and sensuous, but that was the way these young people expressed their feelings through their body. They bounced and bounded into the air. Sometimes a circle of dancers would break and become a single line, weaving in and out among the people sitting on the grass, in and out among the silk flags. A muscular boy held the hand of a girl wearing long dark braids and a black headband in American Indian style. At the end of the line, a boy held a girl's hand with his left hand, while with his right he held a wooden recorder to his mouth and tooted as he weaved in and out of the crowd. Prabhupada became tired and sat beside the brass-bottomed timpani. Singing and playing kartals, he sat grave and straight like an ancient sage. Nearby, a blonde woman sat in yogic posture, bending her body forward until her forehead touched the ground again and again in supplication or exhibition. Another girl stretched out her hands imploringly in a mixed expression of inner feelings, physical and spiritual, while her golden earrings jangled. A Mexican in a checkered shirt beat a tom-tom. A white sheepdog wandered from person to person. Swamiji looked kind and amused. The hippies found him beautiful. He remained gentlemanly, aloof, amidst the twisting, shaking, rocking, dancing young people. Amid their most sensual movements, he appeared not at all like them, for he moved in a stately, elderly way. As he surveyed the activities in the meadow, he seemed deeply pleased to see the ring of dancers singing all around him, chanting Hare Krishna. Although the enthusiasm of these hippies was often wild and sensual, the gathering assumed a wholesome sweetness due to the chanting of Hare Krishna. For Swamiji, the main thing was that the chanting was going on and on, dressed as in a saffron cloth that seemed to change color subtly in the fading afternoon sunlight. He watched in a kindly, fatherly way, not imposing any restraint, but simply inviting everyone to chant Hare Krishna. 25-year-old Linda Katz was walking in the park when she heard the sound of the kirtan. In the crowd of hundreds of people gathered around the scene, Linda found it easy to go close without becoming conspicuous. She felt comfortable watching and even thought of joining the fun. Then she noticed the Swami leading the singing. She was startled, even a little frightened, having never before seen anyone so grave. He was striking. And the dancers appeared beautiful to her. A girl with arms upraised and eyes closed seemed to be swinging like a tree in the wind. One of the men was tall and attractive with golden curly hair, and Linda saw a boy she knew from college in New York, a crazy boy who always wore a shocking pink wool cap. Linda had arrived in San Francisco from New York only a few days ago. She had no plans except to study under a certain dance teacher and maybe get into some of the exciting things she had heard were going on in Haight-Ashbury. As a graduate student in ancient Greek literature at Columbia University, Linda had become attracted to Socrates, who had lived and died for truth. But she hadn't found any of her professors to be at all like Socrates, or in Hindi is known as Socrates. She had envisioned herself living a life of truth by pursuing scholarship. But it had become dry. The ancient civilization of Greece was a dead idea, not a living truth. It didn't touch the heart. She had been aching for a new, exciting experience, and she was ready to throw herself into San Francisco's hippie society. She had come here alone, giving up her fashionable clothes and donning bell bottoms and old shirts. But because she wanted to be serious, she felt awkward trying to fit in with the hippies. She felt that to belong, she was supposed to wipe the serious look off her face and just smile mindlessly. So even in the society of San Francisco's hippies, she remained unsatisfied and lost. The kirtan in the park was the most beautiful sight Linda had ever seen. The dancers were swaying back and forth, their arms raised against the open sky, and in the middle of the dance was a dark, gray-haired wise person sitting and chanting. As she moved in closer, she began to sway with the devotees. Then she sat down and started chanting, wanting to go find out what was going on. After more than an hour of chanting, the elderly leader finally stopped the kirtan and Ilna began talking to some of the devotees. Although the Swami had slipped away, some of his followers had remained, handing out flyers and invitations to the Sunday Love Feast and picking up the timpani and the flags. One of them asked her to come with them to the temple. Linda found the devotees to be something like hippies, but not scruffy street people like most of the hippies she had met. They were attractive, not repellent. Mattresses and plants decorated the little storefront temple. When she stopped before a painting of people singing and dancing, one of the devotees said, "This is Lord Chaitanya and his associates." A devotee gave her some prasadam, and Linda left that night without meeting the Swami. The next day, however, at 7 in the morning, she returned, eager for another chance to see him. She thought he had noticed her at the park and might remember her. She had made a drawing of him and she wanted to show him. That morning, as Prabhupada chanted prayers and led kirtan, Linda didn't take her eyes off him. And when he asked everyone to chant Hare Krishna with him on beads, she excitedly accepted a strand from one of the devotees and tried to chant like him. Then he began reading the Sanskrit verse to begin his lecture, and Linda was captivated by the sound. If she were to continue with a graduate program in Greek, she would study Sanskrit next. So she listened with keen interest, proud that perhaps no one else in the room could understand as well as she. Later that same morning, she met Srila Prabhupada upstairs in his apartment. Linda, in the first conversation I had with him, Swamiji summed up Greek civilization for me in a couple of sentences. He explained that Srimad Bhagavatam was a source of stories like the Iliad and the Odyssey and was a source of Platonic philosophy. I was thrilled. Of course, I believed him. I knew that whatever he was speaking was the truth. There was no doubt in my mind, and he didn't discourage my love for Socrates. He told me Socrates was actually a devotee in disguise. Then he began telling me the story of Krishna, the butter thief, and I said, "Oh yes, I know that story. I saw a dance about Krishna as butter thief." He was very pleased and he laughed. He said, "Oh yes, you know." This encounter with Swamiji was like meeting an old friend because I felt completely at home and protected. And I felt I had found what I was looking for. Here I could use my intelligence and ask the questions I had always wanted to ask in school. Prabhupada initiated Linda, giving her the name Lilamrita. Seeing her eagerness to serve him personally, he decided to teach her to cook by having her prepare his lunch. He already had a little weekend cooking class in which he taught Janaki, Govindadasi, Nandarani, and others the art of cooking for Krishna. Now he invited Lilavati to come. He would walk back and forth in the small room, showing the girls how to knead dough, cook chapatis, measure spices in the right palm, and cut vegetables, and cook them in ghee with masala. The foods were basic: rice, chapatis, cauliflower with potatoes, but he wanted to teach the girls precisely how to cook. Mukunda, one day, just out of curiosity, I went in to witness Swamiji's cooking classes. So I came in and stood at the doorway to Swamiji's kitchen. The women were there learning how to cook, and Swamiji said to me, "What are you doing?" Oh, I said, "I just came to see my wife." Then Swamiji said, Are you going back to Godhead or back to wife?" Everyone was amused, and I realized I wasn't welcome, so I left. The incident made me reflect on Swamiji's seriousness. For one thing, I learned that I should not be so attached to my wife. And secondly, I learned that his relationship with the women and what he was teaching them was actually very sacred, not like the sometimes frivolous association between husband and wife. Because he spent many hours in the kitchen teaching them, they were very inspired. Lilavati tended to be proud. Many of the devotees were not college graduates, and none of them were classical scholars. She sometimes typed for Swamiji, did his wash, or brought flowers to his room in the morning. And he had quickly chosen her to be his exclusive cook. After only a few days of cooking lessons, Swamiji had told her, "All right, you cook." And now he came in only occasionally to check on her. Once, when he saw her rolling chapatis, he said, "Oh, you have learned very nicely." Hmm. Preparing Swamiji's meals just right, with the proper spicing and without burning anything, and on time was a challenge. By the time Lilavati finished, she would be perspiring and even crying from tension. But when she brought in his lunch, he would ask her to bring an empty plate, and he would serve her portions from his own plate and invite her to eat with him. For the first few days, Lilavati made remarks about the wonderful taste of the prasadam, but Swamiji would smile or raise his eyebrows. But then she noticed that he never spoke while eating, but seemed to be concentrating intensely as he sat, cross-legged, bending his body over the plate of prasadam and eating with his right hand. One day on Ekadashi, Lilavati arrived late at Swamiji's apartment, thinking there would not be much cooking on a fast day. But when she entered the kitchen, she found Swamiji himself busily cooking. He was heating something white in a skillet, vigorously stirring and scraping it from the bottom of the pan. "Oh," he said, "I was just wondering, where is that girl?" Lilavati was too shy to ask Swamiji what Swamiji was doing, so she simply busied herself cutting vegetables. "Today's fast day," she said, as if chiding Swamiji for cooking. "You have to understand," he replied. "In Krishna consciousness, a fast day means a feast day. You're offering this to Krishna." Lilavati continued to keep her distance from Swamiji's whitish, sticky-looking preparation until he completed it and placed it on the windowsill to cool. "Later it will harden," he said, "and we can cut it and serve it." And with that, he turned and walked out of the kitchen. When Lilavati finished cooking and served Swamiji his Ekadashi lunch, he asked her to bring him some of that thing on the windowsill. He took a bite, seemed pleased, and asked Lilavati to call Mukunda and Janki to taste it. Janki took a bite and exclaimed, "It's wonderful, simply wonderful, incredible. What is this?" Turning to Lilavati, Swamiji asked, "What's in this preparation?" "I don't know, Swamiji," she said. "You don't know?" he replied. "You were standing right by me in the kitchen, and you don't remember?" Lilavati's face turned red. "Oh, Swamiji," Lilavati replied, "I was very busy. I just didn't see it." "Oh, you were busy without intelligence," he replied, and he laughed for a long time until Mukunda was also laughing. Lilavati felt even more humiliated. Swamiji asked Janki if she could tell what was in the preparation. She couldn't accept that it was sweet. He then sent Lilavati downstairs to get Govindadasi and Gaursundar. When they entered, Swamiji told Lilavati, "Go get some more of that simply wonderful thing." Again, this time in front of 4 devotees, Swamiji asked Lilavati, "So what's in this preparation?" And again she defended herself. She had been too busy to notice. And again he laughed until everyone was laughing with him. He then asked Govindasi to taste the simply wonderful and say what was in it. Immediately she guessed: sugar, butter, and powdered milk. Oh, Swamiji looked at Lilavati. She is an artist. She is intelligent. To Lilavati, the whole episode was a devastating ordeal. Only later did she understand that Swamiji had been trying to teach her humility. So Prabhupada had a different way of teaching. Of course, he always motivated and inspired devotees to do more, do better, but remain humble also. So this preparation of sugar, butter, and powdered milk, and I don't know how it was prepared, but it was like you keep on cooking it until everything comes together and it's cooked properly. And then they would add, later on, they would add some dry fruits to it. But they just called it, the name of the preparation, they just called it simply wonderful. There was no name given, like a laddu or barfi or anything. No, they just called it simply wonderful. It was 7 a.m. Srila Prabhupada sat on his dais in the temple. Beside him on an altar stood the recently acquired statue of Krishna. The child Krishna stood 2 feet high with his left hand on his hip, his right hand holding a rod. Gurudas had found him at an import store and had begged the manager to sell him. And after several visits, the man had agreed for $35. Prabhupada had given him the name Karta Mahashai. Actually, it's not written correctly. It's a Kartami Shai. No, it's Karta Mahashai. I'll try to find a picture of that Krishna with left hand on his hip, standing in standing posture, and right hand holding a rod. So Prabhupada said Karta Mahashai. This morning, as Prabhupada and Karta Mahashai looked out at the devotees in the room, only about 6 people were present. The night before, the temple had been crowded. Where are the others? Prabhupada asked, and then he gave the answer himself. Oh, they are sleeping. All this sleeping is not good. He took out his kartals and began playing the 1-2-3 rhythm. Mukunda took up a mridanga and played along, trying to execute the rhythms Prabhupada had recently taught him. Srila Prabhupada had not even begun singing when the door opened and half a dozen barefoot hippies wandered in, reeking of marijuana. They glanced around and sat down on the floor with the devotees as Prabhupada began singing Guru Ashtakam, the Vaishnava prayers to the spiritual master. Although none of his disciples knew the words, they loved to listen to Swamiji sing these morning prayers. Unhurriedly, he sang each verse several times, repeating each line, deliberately developing the mood of unadulterated service to the spiritual master. Then one of the hippies, a boy with long, straight blonde hair and a red headband, began mumbling, fidgeting, and moaning. Someone softly asked him to be quiet. The boy paused, but then moaned again. Swamiji and his followers were used to drugged hippies who stayed up all night and came to the morning program, sometimes disrupting things. Usually the visitors remained submissive, and even if they occasionally called out in a strange mood, they usually found peace in chanting Hare Krishna and would try to blend with the energy of the devotees. But today's discordant visitor seemed agitated by the chanting, as if it were challenging him. Rather, he sounded like he was challenging it. The devotees began clapping in time with Prabhupada's kartals, and when Prabhupada began singing Hare Krishna, his half-dozen followers immediately joined in, chanting both lead and chorus. Prabhupada looked at them gravely, encouraging the bedraggled early morning band of youngsters, and they responded determinedly. The guests sat in drugged contemplation, although one or two tried singing along, but the blond boy with the red headband remained adamantly disharmonious, moaning defiantly as if trying to throw off the effects of the chanting. Nonetheless, despite the boy's moaning, which was sometimes loud and savage, Prabhupada kept singing and the devotees kept chanting. Mukunda and Haigrave exchanged anxious glances but tolerated the boy, unsure what else to do. Some of the devotees were disturbed and even frightened, but they had also heard Swamiji say in recent lectures that advanced devotees aren't shaken in any circumstances. Swamiji was their leader not only in devotional prayers, but also in how to respond to this intruder. So they waited and watched him for a sign. So advanced devotees aren't shaken in any circumstances. So, which is true. Um, well, at the same time, we cannot imitate advanced devotees, although we're supposed to remain humble and tolerant. So there's a practical way also. Prabhupada remained undisturbed, but although after 20 minutes the kirtan was strong and determined, the blonde boy's madness was not going away. As the chanting built up momentum, he became more agitated. He screamed like a lost soul and hollered like a rock singer. He was becoming more and more troubled and angry. When the devotees rose to their feet and began dancing, the boy began dancing too, but in an own way, crying and pounding his chest. Mukunda played louder on the drum. The sounds were discordant, a clash of individual madness and group chanting until Prabhupada finally brought the kirtan to a close. The devotees bowed their heads to the floor, and Srila Prabhupada intoned the Sanskrit prayers honoring the spiritual masters, the Supreme Lord, and the sacred places. All glories to the assembled devotees, he said. They responded, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhupada said. And then, as was his morning custom, he announced, chant one round. Everyone sat down, including the crazy hippie. The devotees put aside the drums and kartals, reached out for the large red beads and began chanting japa in unison. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Fingering one bead at a time, they uttered the mantra, then proceeded to the next bead. Surprised at this turn of events, the blond boy commented loudly, far out. As rapid chanting filled the room, the boy jumped to his feet and shouted, come with me. He whirled about, facing Srila Prabhupada and howled, I'm God. Then he began screaming long, loud, berserk cries. Wow, wow. He sobbed, growled, grumbled, stomped his feet like a small child. He explored every sound his voice could make. Beating his fists on his chest again and again, he cried, I'm God. And one of the boy's friends suddenly played a few notes on a panpipe. But Srila Prabhupada kept chanting japa, and the devotees also tried to continue chanting, undaunted, while at the same time keeping an eye on the madman and wondering where it will all end. Then, with a final violent ejaculation, the boy shrieked, I'm God, and in anger and disgust, strode out of the room, slamming the door behind him, yelling as he ran down the street. See what Prabhupada had to deal with. This is amazing. All these hippies, drugged, and coming to the kirtan and lecture. The proper japa peacefully engulfed the storefront, and Srila Prabhupada's voice assumed its place more clearly above the voices of all the chanting devotees. After about 10 minutes of chanting, Prabhupada recited Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. Let there be all glory to the congregational chanting of Hare Krishna, which cleanses the dirt from the mirror of the mind and gives a taste of the nectar for which we are always hankering. See, so much of patience Prabhupada had to have to set up this movement. It's amazing. Okay, I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna.